Well, the Forgotten has to have the mandatory Archer speech, so they decided to just get that out of the way at the beginning. For Archer, it's not bad. There's not even a hint of a gazelle. It provides us with an overall short teaser. I said last time that Damage's title had a double meaning, that it referred to not only the ship, but Archer himself. And obviously T'Pol wasn't doing too hot either. The Forgotten likewise has a double meaning. First, for the dead red shirts that are normally forgotten. 18 are dead, including the ones that were vented out into space. But also, well, we'll get into that later. At a meeting, we learn that the ship is doing a bit better, but Tucker's worried that this could be an ambush. Degger is the guy who built the Sphere of Fear and the weapon that killed 7 million people on Earth, and that kind of thing can rub people the wrong way. But Archer insists that they have to go ahead. And realistically, a negotiated peace is the only real option. The Enterprise couldn't take out the weapon with surprise, and it took only 4 ships to fill it with more holes than Broken Bow's plot. This doesn't look like something that they can solve with anything else but diplomacy. So they're just going to have to leave it in the hands of Captain I'll piss on their sacred trees, Archer. He also assigns Tucker the job of writing the letter home for Ensign Taylor, one of the dead 18, even though, as he said, he's up to his armpits in work and hasn't slept in days. Should make for an interesting read. To whom it may concern, Ensign... God, it's on the tip of my tongue. The blonde with the nice ass. Your daughter, yeah. She bought it. I wanted you to know that sucks, because, you know, I liked her, and live long and prosper, I guess. Phlox banters with T'Pol as he checks out her coping with being addicted to stuff that can kill you problem.
Commander Tucker reassigned the repair team that was working here. He said the armory was a higher priority. We'll see how low a priority I am the next time he burns his fingers on a plasma conduit.
Yeah, I've seen you respond to burn victims, Phlox. You could mail him the hypospray and it would get treated faster. As if to remind us where that stuff she's been using to get her fix could have been better used, they wind up in another spatial anomaly that whoops their ass for a while. But finally Degra shows up and leads them away for the rendezvous. There is still some mistrust here. Archer did launch an attack and then try to negotiate only after it failed. So that makes it kind of suspicious. Especially when he says, "Oh yeah, plus, I'm a time traveler! Just don't ask me to travel through time or anything." And Degra and Snarf here are plotting to destroy Archer's home planet, so while the calling off is a good step forward, knowing that the world isn't being blown up while they gab would take a bit of the pressure off, especially considering the things that Archer had to do to get to this meeting. But Archer's going to have to just offer the proof and hope that it's enough. Meanwhile, Tucker's still struggling with that letter.
Her daughter's dead. You really think they'll care what I have to say?
All right, I won't kick a man while he's down. Putting the 3 characters through hell certainly wasn't mandatory for making them interesting or fleshed out people. But hey, whatever works. Compare Tucker during his time in last month's Shuttle Pod 1 to here, well, it's night and day. And it's not all down to having tragedy in his life. I mean, he was in a frozen minivan facing imminent death with only an uptight Englishman for company. That seems like it could put a dampener on anybody's mood. Archer, in all honesty, feels like he has crumbled a bit under the pressure, but has since worked towards dealing with it. T'Pol has been compromised. Tucker, though, basically my remarks on his previous character was because he was written as so short-sighted and just plain dumb. It was impossible to understand how this rube was being put in charge of anything. Now, in the wake of the attack, it feels like he has risen to the occasion. He may still screw up, but it feels more human and less like, what the hell is this idiot who has no idea what the hell is going on in charge for? And yet, these episodes are showing new sides to these people. Despite all appearances, Tucker actually is crumbling, and Archer, his friend, not only can't see it, he's unwittingly making things worse by demanding that he write this letter. Archer can't see that the death of people Tucker's worked so closely with is... well, I'll get to that in a moment. And while Archer is missing what's right in front of him, admittedly he's distracted by a compromised ship, a frantic deadline, and trying to find a way to negotiate with their mortal enemy, T'Pol, the emotionless one, the one who doesn't understand these illogical humans, can see all too clearly Tucker's problem. And yet with her own emotions in turmoil, seems uncertain of how she can help him. So to help Tucker's day, another panel explodes, because the one best suited to fix the thing is the engineer that he's writing the letter for. And thanks to this, Enterprise is now spraying something out of its vagina. But before Tucker can get out his speculum, Phlox comes by and says,
Chernobyl, Exxon Valdez, 3 Mile Line, they were all linked to sleep deprivation.
So Tucker finally agrees to take a nap so he doesn't Chernobyl them or drive Enterprise off the road or accidentally expose himself to the visiting diplomats. You never know with Tucker. Speaking of our guests, Archer tries to explain to them the events of Carpenter Street. Good luck with that. He shows the dead reptilian, but Snarf's a tough audience. Even showing him the equipment that they used to try to make the bioweapon only proves that the reptilians disobeyed the Council, which they already knew. So Phlox shows them pictures of a sphere builder test subject that they'd come across, sent in to see if the environment was changed enough for them to exist within our universe. Guy's dead, so obviously not, but a little time and some big brass balls and it may be habitable for them, which means that it would be uninhabitable for the Xindi. Hence why the sphere builders don't actually put that name on their business cards. Speaking of being in another reality, Tucker's dreaming and he talks to Taylor.
You pulled me off the Saratoga to be on your team. Captain Brody was pretty angry at you.
Well, the captain should have known that no matter the era, the Saratoga is Starfleet's bitch.
Just remember me. Is that asking so much?
Yes.
Because there's more going on than just the letter, or even Taylor for that matter. And we'll start to see that soon as Degger and Snarf argue over the evidence which shows physical readings indicating time travel, but it's a lot to challenge the sphere builders' work in forming the Council and helping their people. So he goes to look at some more evidence, but Tucker's on hand, and he really gets in Degger's face over the weapons, the big one and the one that attacked Earth. Tucker really starts metaphorically pissing on Degger's sacred trees until Archer shows up. There's something you never say. Thank God Archer's here to be the voice of reason. But this is really about doing what I was talking about in Jetrel. Tucker is in the place of Neelix and Degra in Jetrel. Yet the show has been slowly working to flesh out Degra, that he did build that weapon, but he was still mortified to see it in action. And yet he worked to make the even larger one because he felt it was necessary, that he had to do a terrible thing, just like Archer was forced to do in Damage because he believed it the only way to save his people. Except the death was certain and on a far larger scale. But Degra is seeing more and more what a mistake he has made, and coming face to face with those whose lives were wounded by what he has done is making him want all the more for Archer to be right, and not to have thousands of times that number of deaths on his conscience. But all the changes of heart and good intention still won't undo what he has done, the thing that is tearing Tucker apart between writing this letter and having to be nice around the man responsible for all that death. The leak outside it turns into a big green geyser of flame, so Tucker will need to go out there to fix it, accompanied by Reed because Reed is the Enterprise officer in charge of miscellaneous. Only problem is that whenever Reed goes out there, well, bad shit happens to him. Trust me, when the Enterprise stumbles across a facehugger, Reed's is the face it will be suctioned to. Well, in this case, his panel is too warped to properly open, so he's going to have to cut it off, and his proximity to the fire is overheating him. Not too sure if that would work, given that his suit is designed for space, and the only heat he has to worry about is actually radiant heat, but nobody dies, so I guess we'll just wipe that one away and wait for the facehugger. With Tucker's help, he succeeds in shutting it down, but doesn't look good, and Degra makes the mistake of being nice.
I hope he'll be all right.
What's one more dead human to you?
Trip.
You had no problem killing 7 million of us, but 7 million in one is more than you can stomach.
That's enough.
Tucker. Come on, man. I mean, look at this. Captain Archer, a man who pulls out the paneling in his floor checking for Vulcan mind control rays, is telling you to knock off the crazy. Archer apologizes for him, leading to even more awkwardness. You sprayed a death ray at my planet. I kidnapped you and messed with your head. You built a giant doomsday device. I erased your memories of us ever having met. It's a relationship with some baggage. This will probably sound crazy, and I may just be reading something into this, but what's been happening with Tucker has been symbolized by the problem with Enterprise. A small leak, then a massive one, and finally this uncontrolled flaming spray. Tucker is acting this way because something that you can't really see has gone wrong, and it needs to be fixed, but no one else can see that, so it just gets worse and worse and worse. The only one who does finally see it is T'Pol. Way back when the Xindi attack happened at the end of Season 2, Tucker had this little meltdown.
She's dead. So are 7 million others. She was no more important than any of them.
She was more important to you. There's nothing wrong with admitting that.
I'm getting real tired of you telling me what I can and can't do. And while we're at it, I don't need you to remind me that Elizabeth was killed. So just let it alone.
But what the letter has made him realize...
Because every time I start, I hear myself saying what a fine young woman she was, how smart and full of potential.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
And I realize I'm not thinking about Taylor at all. I'm thinking about Elizabeth.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I tried not to see her any differently than the other 7 million. So I've spent the last 9 months trying to pretend she was just another victim.
The other meaning of the title is the reference to Tucker's sister, and what he meant when he responded to Taylor's question of, "Is remembering me too much to ask?" and answering yes. He has been trying to forget his sister rather than come to terms with the senseless death. While Tucker's problem is played out, Enterprise has another problem. A reptilian ship has found them and plans to seize the Enterprise, leaving Degra with the choice of either abandoning this path or attack one of their own ships. Either option, there will be more deaths upon his conscience. He chooses the latter, and the two catch the ship by surprise and weaken it, and much to Archer's surprise, Degra finishes it off so that it can't report any of this. He wants the evidence presented to the Council, but it's not optimistic. And it'll be Archer giving a speech, which makes it even less optimistic. The post-episode follow-up. Annoying character is Malcolm for pulling the broken radio gag. I am tired of hearing it. Final score for The Forgotten is 10 out of 10. It draws this arc to its conclusion, a continuing chance to see the main cast trying to be strong in the face of all this and buckling, and yet each ultimately handling their task. Archer has realized that he can't escape his responsibilities and that he will have to do things that he doesn't want, whether it's stealing from an innocent ship or having to play nice with a man who designed a weapon of mass destruction and was instrumental in the plot to annihilate the human race. T'Pol has realized her desire for emotions has compromised her ability to do her job and has taken the hard steps towards defeating her addiction, and at the same time not losing her ability to recognize the emotional issues within others. And Tucker realized that the fact that he was so strong was actually just a facade, that he wouldn't be doing his best to fix Enterprise until he accepted that he needed to fix himself. One of the themes throughout the work is the issue of consequences, both in the beating upon the ship and the actions everyone has to take that they are not proud of. None of them are things that will be easily fixed, and the Season 4 episode Home will actually look at that in detail. Next week we return to Voyager with Friendship 1, and if there's one thing that name suggests, it's definitely not something depressing and filled with senseless murder.
Facility for deception. Erasing your memory probably